Hey guys, Sharina from Sassy Seamstress, and this tutorial goes over how to make a Mohawk headdress. So I started out with actually making a skull cap using foil and duct tape. So it was pretty simple. I just wrapped the foil around my head and then used the duct tape to secure it, and used a marker to draw out the mold that I'm going to make with paper mache. So using Elmer's glue and just newspaper, I made this paper mache cap, which took about a day to dry. As you can see, I'm laying on there. There you go. And so that will be the base of the whole headdress. And once it's dry, you can actually really easily just peel it off of the skull cap. So we'll need to cover it though, and I decided to use material instead of just like painting it. And I used a felt and a lycra. I wanted the stretchy quality, made it easier to secure it. And these are just some red and black feathers. They were like, I don't know, $1.50 a piece for the bags. And I used this oven sculpting clay. So you sculpt what you want and then bake it. I think it was like 250 degrees, which I already did. And you get these little terracotta horns, which will need to be primed and painted. And I decided to go with 3. The first one is a little smaller than the other 2, and I drew out a little marking place so I know where to glue them, which we'll glue first, and then we'll apply the black material, lining them up. So here's those little terracotta horns, and here I am just priming them. I'm using just a basic white acrylic paint, which dries actually pretty quickly, but I did do, I think, like 2 or 3 coats. And then I painted them with just a black acrylic paint. And once those are dry, I sprayed them with a shiny finish because I wanted that kind of shiny appearance. Which make sure you do it outside because it does really smell. So get some good ventilation. And just work your way through. And we're good to go. So from here, we're actually going to glue them onto the piece. So there's the little marking, and I'm using E6000 glue, which is great stuff, but it does take a little while to dry. So use a generous application of glue, and then you might need to hold it for a little while as it dries. But once it is dry, it's great stuff. And from here, we'll then cover. Once you're done with all 3, we'll start covering it with the black lycra, as you see here, and I've wrapped it around the edges, which is great since it's stretchy. That's the mid seam, so it's actually 2 pieces that I've just kind of cut and stuck on with E6000. This is the felt, and you can see the slits, and that actually helps since it's a curved surface, so that it's flat, and I'm just showing more E6000. And it'll hang off the side a bit. I cut a really basic shape of what I needed, and so I'll have extra on the sides, but that's okay. And just apply that E6000 and secure it. I did it this way so that the edges from the top are nice and smooth, with the felt covering those edges. I thought it just looked nicer. And the felt gives it some padding too when it's on the head. So here's those edges that I said. And so just take some scissors and cut around. It doesn't have to be perfect because we'll be hiding those edges. So now that you're done here, we're going to measure between the horns to create a groove for the feathers, as you can see, just from base to base. And I'm using craft foam. This is really skinny stuff, so I'll be tripling it up actually, and I'll be making just like these little tiny wedges for both sides, as you see here. These are not shaped yet, they're just kind of general length sizes that I need. And I'll put them in like that. As you see here, is not quite a perfect fit, so I'll take a razor blade and just kind of cut them. And there you can see the grooves that I've actually made. And there's the other one. Now, it's kind of hard to tell, but I've kind of created an angle with those 3 layers. And I'm just hot gluing them down. Get a good base and stick them on. There's a little gap between the horn and the craft foam, and I just fill that with hot glue to create an endless seam, which I'm doing here. And we'll actually paint the hot glue and the craft foam so that you won't actually be able to see it. That end will actually be covering, there's that little, we have a small little back piece there. And then we'll actually be covering it with this trim I bought here, which is really textured. I actually really like it. So we'll just wrap it from the front around the horn there and just kind of hot glue it down, and that will kind of hide all that, the glue and any imperfections that you've made, like that. So here's just a small little piece for the front. I found it to be a little bit better look. So just apply some hot glue and stick it down. And then I've cut a small piece there, and this will finish off the sides. Good generous helping of hot glue. And you want to get it pretty close, so just kind of shove it in there. So now you have these edges from where your felt and your lycra is, and we want to cover that using this trim, which actually will also help anchor it when you'll put bobby pins through it. So we'll need a little bit of the trim hanging down that the bobby pins can help secure it to the hair. So we'll just run a bead of hot glue and stick it on, and there it is, glued on there. So I've applied some of the feathers, and I have that last little piece to apply, and I've put a good glob of hot glue in there, and I've picked out my feather sizes that I wanted, and I'm just sticking it into the glue. So good amount of glue, couple feathers, and I'm doubling and sometimes even tripling the feathers in groups to give it a good nice thick mohawk appearance. Finishing it up there. A couple last little feathers in there. So I mean, you can add whatever length that you want. These are actually, I think, just chicken feathers too, so they were really cheap. And that is the finished piece with the 3 horns and your feathers. There you go. And this is me wearing it. I hope you guys liked it, liked this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. And you can find me on Facebook and on G+.